taught by Jess Hepker. Jess has worked in conservation for 8 years as an environmental educator and organic vegetable farmer. She coordinated and conducted weekly surveys monitoring the rusty patched bumblebee for a Fish and Wildlife Service. It's rare, and we want to get them to come back. Let's see. She's done this with a service recovery unit for 3 years with a team in Illinois. Her experience connecting people with land and water led her to starting Dropseed Farm, a small-scale organic vegetable farm that offers native plants for home gardens every spring. She has a BS in forestry from Iowa State University. She will take questions at the end. If you have any questions, I'll let her know when we're 10 or 5 minutes before closing. We're passing down the evaluation sheets, and I don't know if I've got enough. We'll have to, if we have extra, when we get down to the end, we'll have to go back to the back. But fill out your evaluation sheet, and there's a slip for you to put your name on. When you turn in your evaluation sheet at the end of the 3rd session, I'll have a bucket. You can put your name in the bucket of drawings, and then we will be doing door price drawings for that. So that will open up the walls and stuff then, so that you can get to the stuff to do that. So if we please do that, and it's important that we turn in the evaluation so we know how we did and what you might like to see in future sessions. So with that, I'll turn you over to Jess, and I'm sure you'll enjoy what you have to say.
Thank you.
Say that.
Hi guys. I'm Jess. I'm Jess Hepker. You may have seen me at the farmer's market. Raise your hand if I look familiar to you. Yeah. So I'm down by City Hall on 13th Street, and I have a vegetable stand out there. I farm organically. I'm certified organic. I rent a half an acre out of the Centinela Mound, and I started my Dropseed Farm business through that rental program. So I'm excited to be here and to see all of you fellow nature nerds. I'm a big nature nerd myself. As Linda was explaining a little bit about my history, I did spend about 8 years in conservation before I started organic farming, and mostly in environmental education. I grew up canoeing the rivers in the driftless, mostly the Upper Iowa River. Raise your hand if you've been to the Upper Iowa River up near Decorah. It's really beautiful. So I'm really just driven to find people that are interested in land stewardship, and so I think to do that, I'm driven to inspire land stewardship by many of the activities I'm doing. My Dropseed Farm is one business venture that I've newly started a couple of years ago, but I've also worked for the Bumblebees Conservation Foundation and volunteer for various conservation organizations in the area. So reach out to me if you want a partnership. So I have 8 years also in organic farming. I farmed in Maine and then Minnesota, and now I'm here in Dubuque. And Dubuque is such a lovely community. A few years ago, I was given the gift of bumblebee identification. And I call it a gift because when I was introduced to this team who was eager to do something about helping out the rusty patch bumblebee. The rusty patch bumblebee, you may have heard, is an endangered species. It's newly added to the endangered species list on the Fish and Wildlife Service. And it's the first and only bumblebee that's been added to the list. And, many species are, in decline and probably should be on the list, but it's quite a process to get a species listed. And once it's listed, then you can take, legislative action for helping get funds or restore ecosystems. So The Rusty Patch Bumblebee was very important to this lovely team of volunteers in Illinois who really, we learned together about bumblebee identification and restoring these habitats. So throughout 3 years, we facilitated weekly surveys at a restored prairie. This is the Wapello Land and Water Reserve. Really beautiful, surrounded by these bluffs. You can see in the background, if you look all around in the prairie, you're kind of like in this bowl in the Apple River Valley, surrounded by green forested bluffs. It's really cool. And the bumblebee populations there are very high relative to other prairie areas, and so that's why we selected this location to do the surveys, because there's a ton of bumblebees. And throughout the 3 years of the survey, we got to know what species of nectaring flowers were available during what times of year, and which ones did the bumblebees visit most often. So there's all different kinds of pollinators and insects that will visit different species, and each species is kind of adapted to different flowers, right? There's different depths of a nectar channel, different colors, different heights. There's a whole structure to the prairie grasslands that provide unique habitats for these various species. So throughout the 3 years, we got to know what do they need. So I'm going to go through the annual cycle of nectar sources for bumblebees. These are species that I think would be very easy to put in your urban gardens. So if you live in a rural area, please put them there too. So maybe you'll start to collect your own seed and spread them throughout more areas, share with neighbors, and just watch the bumblebees come to you. So I'm going to start with talking about, well, before we really get started, I want you to actually navigate to this website. Take out your browser and pull up iNaturalist.org. This is, I'll give you a minute to do that, iNaturalist.org. You can also write it down if you don't want to do it right now. You can definitely do it later. iNaturalist.org. QR code working? I love that. Okay, once you're there, that's just the welcome screen. I just want you to have that up in your browser so you can come back to it later and consider using this as a resource. It's an online community of citizen scientists, and this is a place where you can upload your photos and observations and share it with a broader community. There's crowdsourcing data to help us figure out what do these various species need. So it can be a plant, a bird, an animal, insect, a fungus. They haven't included fossils in it yet, but feel free to put a photo up there and see how the community responds. It will have some help. There is some AI technology that helps you get started with an identification just based on the photo. So, you've seen some of these apps where you can point your phone at a plant and it kind of uses that photo to try to figure it out. AI is helpful, but it's not always 100% accurate, right? So the nice thing about iNaturalist is that there's real people behind the scenes doing all of the identification confirmation. So you can kind of get started and try to figure out what species you're looking at, and then there's real people behind the scenes that will confirm or suggest a different species identification. And usually it's required to have 2 real people that will confirm before it's considered official research grade is the term that they use. Whether or not it's used in research is another story, but it requires 2 people to confirm that species. So that's the thing I like about iNaturalist. There's real people behind the scenes doing that. So it's just a really useful website. It's become one of the most useful websites for data collection for the Fish and Wildlife Service too. So you can start community projects with this, neighborhood projects. There's all kinds of good stuff to explore on this website. It's very helpful. So you can go ahead and put away your phone now, or just leave it out, whatever you need. But I just wanted you to bring that up so that you can come back to it later. Okay, now we're going to go through the year of a bumblebee. What do they need? So in this time of year, mid-March, we are thinking about the bumblebees and we're remembering that they have been in hibernation since about mid-October. They hibernate underground in little underground nests, and this is the time of year where the queens start to emerge. The first bumblebees you'll start to see are the queens, and the queens are really large. So there's about 11-ish species in our area of bumblebees, and the queens are going to be about twice as big than like the workers or the males. So the first ones we start to see in mid-March are the queens, and the first thing that they start to feed on are woodland ephemerals. So woodland ephemerals are, ephemeral means blooming during a very short amount of time during the year between the snow melt and the leaf out. So raise your hand if you've heard of an ephemeral. Yep. Maybe you hike around in the woods often, you see these in early spring. They're just starting this time of year. And we haven't yet had leaf out, so this is the time to go and see them, and will last until about mid-May, early May. So this is the woodland ephemeral time of year. So I'm just going to list a few here, and this is going to go kind of quick. So a few woodland ephemerals: Dutchman's breeches, trillium, spring beauty. These all have nectar channels that are appropriate for bumblebees. This is one that we see a lot of bumblebees visiting. These are species that are easy to put in your garden. And remember, they grow in the understory of forests, so they like shade, right? Think of the understory of a forest is very shady. So woodland ephemerals really like shady spots. And you think about your garden or your home yard area, where's the shade? They need a little bit of sun in the early spring this time of year, right? But maybe you have a nice shady place under a tree. A few more is red columbine, the wild columbine, Virginia bluebells, violets that we see popping up in our lawns. These are all really good nectar sources. And flowering shrubs in the early spring. So pussy willows start to bloom and really come out about this time, late March. So how many of you guys have pussy willows in your yard? Okay, definitely plant some. And this one's a super easy one to plant. You can just take a cutting of the branch and stick it in the ground. It grows pretty well. Bumblebees love the pussy willows. Service berries. Service berries are really important, and in June and July, you can also use the berries for yourself. The birds enjoy them too. And then pagoda dogwood. So pagoda dogwood blooms a little bit later, mid-May-ish. Pussy willows will bloom late March, depending on temperature this time of year. Service berries like April, and then pagoda dogwood is like mid-May. So that's a few shrubs. Some trees. I didn't put a slide in here for trees, but trees that the bumblebees love are redbud. You all probably know what a redbud tree is, eastern redbud. Black cherry trees. These are really large trees. If you happen to have a black cherry tree in your neighborhood, like it doesn't have to be in your yard, right? Maybe it's just in your neighborhood, right? Because bumblebees go everywhere. So that's quite a treat to have a black cherry tree. Maybe that can be the tree that creates the shade for the rest of your plantings too. Northern catalpa is another really good bumblebee nectar source. Northern catalpa. Basswood, yes. There's so many, right? Yeah. Maples also. Maples are flowering right about now. A lot of trees will produce produce flowers before the leaf out too. You may have noticed that flowers come before leaves in a lot of species. Okay, so how many of you have participated in No Mow May? Okay, some of you have, some of you haven't. No Mow May is a catchy phrase, right? No Mow May, easy to remember. But our natural cycles and the cycles that us animals follow are more in tune with, the temperatures. And so it's not necessarily all of May that you need to not mow for the habitat of the bumblebees. Maybe it's like mid-May you can mow, So I like to just say no mow until the dogwoods bloom. It's not as catchy, but it's a little bit more accurate, right, when you're thinking about what do our pollinators need. So when in mid-May you start to see those violets popping up in your lawn, that's really important for those queens that are coming out for the first time. So those violets are really important. Even the clovers are really important for them. Okay, mid-May and June. So wild blue indigo or baptisia. This is commonly used for nectaring. Foxglove beard tongue. Many people at market ask me about foxglove beard tongue. Is it poisonous? No, it is not poisonous. So the name is confusing. Foxglove is also the name of a European species of really beautiful flowers, kind of bell-shaped. You guys probably know foxglove is being garnered. So just the name that we call this native species of foxglove can be really confusing for that reason. But the native foxglove beard tongue is not poisonous. It's not even in the same family. Just has a similar bell-shaped flower, so the botanist named it the same for that reason. So the foxglove beard tongue is really beautiful. It's a favorite for bumblebees. Wild geranium. Wild geranium is also another good nectar source. May and June. Lanceleaf coreopsis. Any of the coreopsis, really. Any of the coreopsis. Bergamot or Monarda, bee balm. It's a really important one. Culver's root is probably the flower I see most bumblebees on. Culver's root is I love the way it looks elegant, and it reminds me of like a Victorian garden, like a chandelier out in the garden. It's really cool. Kind of stands up tall and straight. So Culver's root is really important. So I would say throughout our surveys, Culver's root had the most bumblebees on it. And bergamot, but mostly Culver's root. Purple coneflower, a super common one, Tory vervain, and Joe Pye. We're getting into June and July. And remember, this isn't all the nectar sources. These are ones that I've seen the most bumblebees on, right? Like, I'll have to show you how to navigate around iNaturalist to see photos of bumblebees, and often photos of bumblebees, they're on a flower, so you can see what do they like. So. Okay, August and September are the time of year when most of the nectar and pollen is collected. So this is like the most important time. August and September is when the bumblebee populations are the highest, mostly in August. So prairie blazing star, or also Liatris, that's the winter genus name, Liatris. There's many different kinds of blazing star. There's meadow blazing star, any of the Liatris or blazing stars. Really a favorite for bumblebees also. New England aster, or any aster really. New England aster is one that blooms in August and September, and it's really beautiful if you're looking for a huge pop of color. a heath aster, a white aster, sky blue aster, sawtooth sunflower, wild quinine. These are all good nectar sources. Okay, and then mid-September is when we stop seeing so many out and about. The bumblebees start to find their underground nesting spots. And they're going to need a specific spot in your yard to nest. They like to nest under your leaf litter. And maybe you have an area in your yard where you can just designate as, this is the spot where I'm going to leave the leaves, right? Maybe it's like this weird channel behind your garage or somewhere along the fence line. But somewhere, leave the leaves. So leaving the leaves is pretty important for many different insects. Bumblebees is just one of many. This is the QR code for the Xerces Society information on bumblebee conservation. I have a slide with, this will be on it again at the very end. So this is the Xerces Society bumblebee conservation. This has all kinds of information that I am not talking about here, like pesticide use and all of that. So leave the leaves. How many of you leave some leaves in your garden or yard? Great. That's fantastic. Okay. This is me at the farmer's market. I sell native plants, but I don't sell all the species, so please feel free to walk around market and find the species you need. I always encourage people to just buy local, buy from your local plant growers. Yeah, so I'm on 13th Street by City Hall, and I have an array of native plants. So I am, an organic farmer, and I do a lot of land stewardship just on my own farm, but I also just keep involved with community conservation organizations too. Well, first of all, I want to open it up for questions before we do the group discussion. So raise your hand if you have questions right off the bat. Any questions so far? Yeah.
We talk about nectar.
Yeah.
Is that the only thing that they eat?
They do eat and collect pollen, and that's mostly for their larvae. Yeah, I can't say that I know too much about that, like that end. I have observed myself the nectar sources. So I'm always curious to learn more, and I do read a lot, but I don't know all of the details. And actually the Fish and Wildlife Service, when we were working with them, they said that they don't know. We're just getting started with the data collection. So a lot of this, if you look at the Xerces Society too, the information sheet, it's very surface level information. So you can participate in all of these observations and data collection too. So yeah. Yeah.
I've planted asters before, and they get big and beautiful, and then all of a sudden they're gone. Do they have a problem growing in this area?
No, they don't. They do die back in the winter. Most plants in this area do that. And they come back every year. You may not know if it's kind of plant, it blooms, later in the season. So, you may think it does actually look like a leaf for a good part of the year, right? Asters kind of look a little weedy until their flowers come on. It's like, whoa.
It's like the whole plant is gone. So would it be the soil?
Oh, could be a lot of things. Could be a deer. Could be a rabbit. Oh, that's a good question. So there are differences, right? So and that's something that we talked a lot about because we were, you bumblebee around town too, right? In people's gardens, and you can see that bumblebees visit like zinnias and other, non-native plants and hybridize, versions of coneflower. And the bumblebees visit them. And We see that they are nectaring on them. We don't know, so when us humans hybridize and selectively breed for our colors, we love them, and I think that's great. We just don't know, does it change the nectar channel? Does it change what's in the the sugar content of the nectar? There's a lot of just things we don't know, right? Like, because what we're trying to do is select for color, and that's not like that or anything. It just leaves an open-ended question for us. So I like to think about how have these bumblebee species, adapted and evolved over the years, and it is in partnership with these native, original nectar sources. So I don't know, maybe it's just fine to be planting zinnias in your bumblebee garden. I have seen them quite a lot on other hybridized and colorful flowers, so it's okay to do that. Yes.
If just addressing that question on why plants go bad, there is a natural life cycle for most plants. So for an aster, it's on the average of about 10 years. If you're doing a butterfly weed, it's an average of 3 to 5 years. So if it's not living that long, then you need to take a look at the soil and other conditions.
That's a good, yes.
Sometimes hybridized plants don't last anywhere as long as
Sure.
That's true.
That's very true.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Dubuque and the asters are using them for plantings, can get a little mildew. That can be a common problem.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
Dubuque and the asters is very, very important nectar source for migrating monarchs, insects like that. They're very, very important.
Yes, they are. Yes, I often see monarchs and all kinds of butterflies on them. Yeah, they're really important, especially that time of year, right? Because that is when they migrate.
So they keep going all the way up to freezing.
Yes. Yeah, and so the mildew, a lot of plants can harbor that mildew. It's like a powdered mildew, right? Asters is one, bergamot is another. It's usually not a big deal, right? I mean, it can be a big deal if you're trying to grow vegetables, and your plants will start to, decline and your yields decrease. But of all the problems that you deal with, the powdered mildew is pretty manageable.
You plant 1 million asters, you're going to have a lot more.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Are you gathering seed and then reseeding from what you
I do collect my own seed. I will order, so if I don't have the species that I'm trying to grow, I will order from Prairie Moon Nursery. They're based out of Winona, Minnesota. It's about 50, maybe more than that. It's north of here, so right on the Mississippi River. Prairie Moon Nursery is a really good source of seeds, and they have really good information on how to get them started too. Yes.
At your farmer's market booth, do you sell just the produce or do you sell young plants or seeds?
I do the plants also. I also do, I do plants and vegetables. So I do vegetable plants for your home garden. I also do native plants for your home garden. And in May, that's mostly what I have is the plants. So, yeah. Okay, any more questions? Yes.
So, did you say there's 10 types of bumblebees in Iowa?
10, 11, 12,
Okay.
They come and go, right? And about that many.
So what is the lifespan? I mean, how long do they live, or do they just
How long do
live?
bumblebees live?
Like honeybees, they say they, the worker bees live 6 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, okay. Well, how long do they live? The queens that come out this time of year were larvae last spring.
Last
So-
spring, okay.
They come out and they grow their hive, right? And their colony increases, right? And all the worker bees are female also. also.
Okay.
The males, the only role the males have is to breed, eat, and die. So that's all they do. They don't have to do any work. So they just, and they're really small. The males are very small bumblebees. So if you see a bumblebee that's really little, it's probably a male. Yeah. Or we see bumblebees leaping on flowers, very cute. And it's a lot of times it's a male. They get yeah, okay, so I want to do a little group discussion, and you guys can just kind of find people around you to answer some of these questions. This is something to just kind of get you thinking about your own home garden and your own neighborhood and what you can do. A series of 5 questions. So, have you tried the no mow May thing? Do you mow, and if so, or if not, you know why and how? Do you leave the leaves? Sounds like most of you guys do, but just kind of trying to get a feel for like the why not, and it's okay. You know, everybody has different goals, so that's fine. And take a minute to think about, have you ever felt inspired by another gardener here or in your neighborhood or nearby? And then share about a time when you felt a sense of community in your neighborhood. What was happening in your neighborhood? What brought on that sense of community? And what will you do different in your garden this year to help out the bumblebees? So just take a minute to kind of discuss that with your neighbors. What's your question?
It's not a question much, but I just wanted people to know that there was a wonderful webinar from Smithsonian Institute, and a guy who had kept samples for years. They have a sample of all the different plants from different regions, and the protein content of plants has gone down over the years, which may explain why there's collapse of honeybee hives, but also bumblebees. And I just looked up the best protein sources filled with bumblebees, and they are American senna, spiderwort, culver's root, roses, clovers, red raspberry, and whole buttercup.
Oh, great.
But I mean, I think protein content seems to be an issue.
Yeah.
All bees.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Maybe we can list that up here somewhere. Nice. Okay, so go ahead and take a few minutes to gather with the people around you. Go ahead and take some time, answer these questions, think about your neighborhood, and then we'll share with each other. We'll get a feel for what we got going on. Okay?
I will.
Okay, so, raise your hand if you've tried No No May. Okay, how did it work out? Did you like it? Put your thumbs up in the air. Did you like it or did you not like it? Somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle. Okay, so raise your hand and tell me, why did you decide to try it? And yeah, why did you decide to try it? What was the initial, I'm interested in trying this. Yeah.
Well, I was just looking at the normal in May, but I didn't have flowers or anything, I just had grass.
Yeah.
And I left my whole backyard and my orchard to go up in grass. So like a week before the water, I grabbed some stuff.
Oh.
And it just made a mess. It took me.
It was a lot for your mower to get there.
Well, even though it took a month to get that grass open. I don't know if I did anything or not.
So maybe it was like, sounds like the aftermath of it
Yeah.
all. It's hard to handle.
It really looked nice.
Yeah.
When the grass is this high in the orchard,
Yeah.
the wind would blow through and it'd bend and come back. And it looked pretty, but once you cut it up, it was
Okay. Okay, so
You needed some goats.
maybe clean up afterwards, okay? Anybody else? What made you want to try it? Yeah, how about you in the back?
These talk about bass, there's a blade called mulching blade. It's got separation from the back of the blade. I use it for weeds, for weeds.
Uh-huh, mulching it up.
Does a lot better job than breaking it up.
Yeah, breaking it up really good.
It's like mowing it twice and comes back.
They offer no mow grass out of Prairie Moon catalog that you don't have to mow.
Yes, I believe it's called fescue. And it's just a short grass, a native short grass, like 6 inches, and that kind of lays over real nice. What you do, just have to great thing. Yeah.
I was part of the organizational group in Dubuque that did normal May.
Yeah.
So I did it for a while, but then people started saying you could actually mow by mid-May, which I did.
Yeah.
Because it was getting pretty tall.
That's why I say no mow till the dog lives. No mow May is catchy. Easy to remember. I think that's why they started that, right? But we know that our flowering doesn't always follow our calendar. Like it doesn't. No. It has to do with the temperature, the sunlight, you know. So pay attention to what's flowering and make your decision about what you do based on that, right? So, no, to the dog would, or pick a flower, right? No mow till your tongue or whatever it is. So I agree, about mid-May. Okay, how about you? One more.
The biggest issue for me is not no mow May, it's what do I do for cleanup?
Yeah, the after part.
Yeah, how slowly do we go at it? There's lots living there, but there are new plants coming up too.
Yeah. Yep, so it's the after part.
So
And what I have found, like when you're describing the mulching, some kind of a mower that mulches it up pretty well, I found it works pretty well. So I want you to think about, you know, what are your goals in your garden, in your yard, you know?
I found out by accident, if you mow forward and then mow backwards over it, it mulches it much finer.
Love that. Cool. I think that.
But don't run out of
Yeah.
top of what.
But I found I'm also mulching up overwintering insects.
Okay.
So I have some pile, you know. I have a
Yeah,
lot of
usually by
piles.
mid-May, everybody's like out and about. But sounds like the aftermath. So this is good. The aftermath of the no mow May sounds like that's kind of the tough thing to deal with. So good information. We can all ponder on that together. Okay, did you leave the leaves? It sounds like most of you guys left your leaves somewhere. Do you leave them throughout the whole yard, or do you have a designated spot? Do you let your neighbor leave the leaves and you break your leaves? How do you deal with that in your yard or garden area? All over. So go ahead and raise your hand. All over. You leave the leaves everywhere?
Everywhere. There was an article either in Grit or in Mother Earth News just recently that said, leave the leaves because it's home to many, many beneficial spring emerging insects that are killed if, you know, or they die if they don't have the cover. Butterflies and everything. So
Only answer is that the leaves is too much.
We should learn together on that. We should make observations and we should come back next spring and tell each other what we learned. That would be a great thing to try to figure out. How many leaves are too many? Yeah. Good question. Yes.
Is it a good idea to mulch them and then take a certain amount of them and put them into your flower gardens in the fall?
The leaves?
Yeah. When you're
I always
raking them up
recommend
and then-
if you're someone who likes to, you know, rake up your leaves, put them somewhere. If your flower garden is where it makes sense to put them, I think that's great. If that's the spot that you want to designate, I think that is great. Somewhere, right? The other option is people bag it up and send it away and the city does a composting thing with them, right? So think about where all these things are going, right?
But don't you also have to worry about the leaves if they come from a tree that has some kind of disease? Are you
Well,
gonna spread that if you take them and put them?
Sure,
in
if your
the
tree
flower
has a disease, or, you know, if it's a walnut tree, walnut debris on your flower garden would really probably kill a lot of stuff in there, right?
Yeah.
Walnut leaves and nuts and things will decompose and release a chemical that will kill a lot of things. So knowing what trees you have is good too. Leaves. Yeah.
Walnut trees, you just turn them all around, blow them back up underneath the trees.
Okay.
After shred.
Well,
That takes care of the problem.
that sounds great.
In the flower beds, shred them once or twice, and blow them right back in the flower bed. I never bag a single bag of leaves in my business every year.
Okay, one more here.
I usually pull them all off my lawn and put them in like a cardboard layer in the garden and then leaves on top.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and the cardboard, of course, breaks down over time.
Okay, great. All right, have you ever felt inspired by a gardener in your neighborhood or nearby? I think this is just kind of a show of the hands thing. Have you felt inspired by someone? Yes, you could also be inspiring someone. We all are, just by teaching by example, just by being in the community, right? Share about a time that you felt a strong sense of community in your neighborhood. So was there ever a time, a specific memory in your neighborhood where there was a strong sense of community? What happened in your neighborhood where there was a strong, or maybe you've never experienced that? Anybody want to share anything, whether you have or haven't? Yeah.
I laid out a bunch of my extra tomato plants in the front yard. They were gone in 2 seconds.
Oh, good.
I don't think I think they liked it. Occasionally, somebody would say that they came back when they were walking and said they grew. They didn't remember the name of the plant, which was always upsetting to me because I wanted to know what tomato it was that you love so much. You know?
Oh, that's so good. So you're sharing your plants with your neighbors. That's really good. Sounds like they're appreciated too. Cool. Yes.
When I moved into our house, we had a neighbor across the street that divided her flowers, brought them over to our landscape. And then we also provide like tomatoes and peppers for the fire station guys that are across the street. And they grow in 5-gallon buckets over there.
Wow, cool. Very cool. That's so inspiring. What will you do different in your garden this year for the bumblebees? Is there anything that you might add or change in the way that you're planting your garden this year for the bumblebees? You might try something new. How many of you think you might plant a new nectar source? Great. Okay. Let's see. I wanted to just say, let the bees teach you, right? So we can see and ponder and read all that we want about what we should or should not do, or learning about the protein thing or all of that. If you get out to your nature preserves and your state parks and your native prairies, or even just walking around your neighborhood where there's bumblebees on your neighbor's flowers, and pay attention. What flowers are they on? Just pay attention to them and let the bees teach you what they need. Right? So notice what they have in their habitat. I wanted to just list a few of the nature preserves near our area that I see a lot of bumblebees at. So Castor Bluff is one that's on the Illinois side. The Prairie Loop at the Mines of Spain, that doesn't have as many forbs and flowers, but it's a really good prairie spot. Wapello has like the most that I've seen. Whitewater Canyon has a really nice prairie with a lot of good bumblebee flowers in it too. The Hertzville Interpretive Center has a trail system that kind of goes around with some prairie and wetland. So, and then there's a little bit of forest, mostly it's wetland and prairie. It's kind of a unique thing, and they have an interpretive center too. Wyalusing Park is up near the Wisconsin River. That's a really great place to go, especially for the woodland ephemerals. Wyalusing is really great for seeing what kind of ephemerals you might like to plant. And then your own neighborhood gardens too. Okay, just a list of resources. You guys can either come up and scan this, you can ask questions. I would love to go into more detail about iNaturalist, but I think that we're pretty much out of time. Oh no, we do have some minutes. Do you guys feel like you want to dive into iNaturalist? Yeah? Okay.
You did? Definitely. I
Well, I'm gonna need your Wi-Fi password.
While Jess is gone getting the Wi-Pass, all of you got the evaluation sheets and hopefully a tag for your name. But I think we ran out in the back of the tags for the name. So when you turn in your sheet at the end of the third session, if you'll see me, I'll try to give you extra to have your name tag so that you can put your name in the pot. We'll be doing the drawing for the prizes after the third session.
We got more people with this price here. If you get 100, put 50 people with this one. That would be the only. This is another classroom. Yeah, that would be
We've got that whole other side of the house. Bullshit. So I don't have the side with their, so I don't want to do too much. So we're doing the other one. That's what I want to do. Because the gutter on that side is building.
We're not going to have time to go in when they have it. So, let's thank Jess for her. The next session starts at 10:30. So, and remember to fill out your sheets and turn them in at the end of the next session.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I don't know. I just to keep.
Right, and you can say that you're right. Sorry.